Who would have thought that Block, the company run by Jack Dorsey, a prominent Bitcoin maximalist in the space, is going to work with Circle, the issuer of the USDC stablecoin, also known as the stablecoin underlying all of decentralized finance, which mostly lives on Ethereum. According to a conference this week in San Francisco run by Circle, Jack Dorsey's Block subdivision, TBD, is going to be working with Circle on implementing some new plans for USDC reach and growth. They noted that USDC and the dollar mostly is the largest way to get people into Bitcoin and into the crypto world, and then out of the crypto world. It remains to be a pain point. Zach, I want to throw this one up to you. This sort of caught me off guard because I did not think that Block would go along this path. But naturally, for anyone who's been in the crypto space, everything comes back to the dollar. Everything comes back to stable coins. And so there had to be some sort of pairing at some point with a company like USDC or like Circle in order to get more adoption.
Circle's having its big event this week, and they saved all the announcements. I think yesterday they announced, that they were expanding to a bunch of new chains, right? We saw this from Block being announced as well. I think for me, the question is whether or not this work with TBD ultimately gets extended to Block's more consumer-facing applications, right? So we got Cash App, we got all sorts of stuff, right? So whether or not, the stablecoin USDC gets integrated into those services, that's the big question for me. But I think it presents a really interesting picture about where these new financial rails are headed, right? I think these firms who have been dabbling in crypto, they understand that some of these chains are a much more efficient way to move money across borders around the world, digitally native, than existing on-ramps, than existing financial rails that rely on the incumbent banking system. So if this becomes something that becomes a bedrock of how Block approaches its digital asset strategy, that to me is super duper fascinating, beyond just the horse race of, can USDC outstrip USDT in circulating supply, right? I think what we're seeing here is companies being like, okay, how do we use public blockchain networks and make them work for us as a company? If there are operational advantages to working in USD stablecoins as opposed to dollars in, correspondent banks the world over, then that's something that I think we're going to see more companies entertain. And this one is a really interesting one because, Will, as you alluded to, dollar-backed stablecoins are certainly not exactly sort of the censorship-resistant paragon of some Bitcoin maximalist fantasy environment, right? But here we have this company helmed by Jack Dorsey saying, okay, there's something useful here. We should start experimenting with it. And it's going to be really fascinating to see how that gets rolled out to its consumer base, in my opinion. Jen, tossing it to you.
I think Jack Dorsey is just doing so much to make crypto more accessible. And so the remittance industry has been ripe for disruption for a really long time. We've spoken about Bitcoin, especially when it comes to El Salvador. And I think the last time we spoke about El Salvador, we spoke about those on and off ramps. We spoke about the extreme volatility of Bitcoin. And here we have Jack Dorsey, who's kind of solving those issues as a stepping stone towards this future that we always talk about, right? And so there's a quote in the story by Emily Chu. She's TBD's chief operating officer. She said, "The US dollar is the reserve currency today, and we think Bitcoin might be the reserve currency of tomorrow. Stable coins are the bridge in between." And so it's just so nice to see that these problems that have existed in this industry for so long are being solved with the technology that already exists. And those people on the other end who can benefit the most from crypto can maybe finally start to have some of these barriers taken away. Well,
yeah, I love this headline in terms of like a building approach, right? Like if you think of Block and you think its place within the neobank world, right? They really took off, have done well. They have a lot of assets under management. They have Cash App, which is like basically a pretty big competitor to Venmo at this point. And, it was a startup project. At one point, it had no chance against Venmo. It was able to get off the ground. A lot of people use it now. They have Bitcoin built into that natively. You have your bank built into it. You can have a credit card application with it. You can buy stocks with it. Now imagine putting a stable coin into that picture in that scenario. And you can really see how some of these DeFi applications, some of these more bleeding edge finance apps out there that people are building right now can come into the mainstream, right? Like imagine if I had USDC right on my Cash App and I was able to use that for whatever purchase I want to make, whatever yield I want to make, whatever NFT I want to buy, or whatever it may be, that's pretty bullish for the space. It's going to be a while before we get there. And we, like you said, Zach, that might not ever happen, right? That might not be the ambition of this project. But the fact that they're working together means that maybe they've tossed that idea around, and there could be other potential applications for pairing between some of Square's products, or Block's products rather, and what USDC or Circle has been working on for quite a while. Zach, over to you.
I think, USDC yields in DeFi could maybe one day be like the Web3 killer app, right? It's like, oh, wow, I'm in my Cash App and I'm getting more attractive yields than I would in my savings account. That's cool. And you don't even need to really know about what's happening. But when you have those USDC stablecoins, or whichever other stablecoins that can be integrated in these decentralized lending markets, that's pretty cool. That merging of Web 2 with Web 3, Web 2.5, MulletFi. I'm still hype on MulletFi. Business in the front, DeFi in the back. FinTech, DeFi. That's where USDC comes in. Could get interesting.